super boost to India's nuclear arsenal. Second Desi nuclear submarine inducted. INS Arihant joins India's nuclear command. Arighat wields long-range nuclear weapons. Second homegrown boomer in service now. India's big nuclear message unveiled. It's India's second homegrown, home-developed and home-built nuclear submarine. She's called INS Arihant, and there is only one picture of her in the public domain. 6 years after India first entered this amazing and exclusive club of inducting its very own nuclear submarine, one that it had built from scratch, India has just done it again. Take a look at this report. This grainy, distant image taken from Visakhapatnam's Ramakrishna beach is the only public image of INS Arihant. India's second homegrown nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarine. Her silhouette breaking the surface of the Bay of Bengal for this single, haunting, intriguing frame. With no cameras or media present, INS Arighat was quietly commissioned into service at Visakhapatnam, India's submarine capital, on Thursday, with Defence Minister Rajnath Singh felicitating the designers, builders and the inaugural crew. Entering service 8 years after India's OG nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarine INS Arihant entered service, the similar-sized but significantly improved INS Arighat marks a crucial advancement in India's strategic defence architecture, reflecting India's commitment to maintaining a robust and credible nuclear deterrent. With the arrival of INS Arighat, the sea leg of India's nuclear weapons triad now has 2 submarines armed with nuclear-tipped long-range missiles ready to execute a devastating Indian response to any nuclear provocation. While India's ground-based ballistic missiles like the Agni and air-delivered nuclear weapons form the other 2 legs, the submarine-based deterrent is seen as the most secretive, stealthy and survivable, and therefore the most formidable in a nuclear scenario. INS Arighat, like its sister ship INS Arihant, is equipped with advanced technology and a very potent arsenal. The submarine is believed to be carrying up to 12 K-15 Sagarika missiles, which have a range of up to 750 kilometers. Additionally, it may also be equipped with the longer-range K-4 ballistic missiles, which can strike targets with nuclear warheads up to 3,500 kilometers away. This range extends India's strategic reach, enabling it to target adversaries from the depths of the ocean, thus ensuring a credible deterrence. The submarine is powered by a nuclear reactor, allowing it to remain submerged for near limitless periods, unlike conventional diesel-electric submarines of the kind used in conventional operations. This ability to stay underwater for longer durations makes it less detectable and enhances its survivability, a key factor in its role as a strategic deterrent. The induction of INS Arighat has profound implications for India's strategic posture, particularly in the Indo-Pacific region. As geopolitical tensions continue to simmer, especially with the rise of China's naval power and its assertive posturing in the South China Sea, India's need to secure its maritime borders and maintain a credible nuclear deterrent has never been more pressing. INS Arighat enhances India's second strike capability, which is vital for maintaining the doctrine of no first use of nuclear weapons. In a potential conflict scenario, the survivability of INS Arighat ensures that India retains the ability to retaliate against a nuclear strike, thereby deterring adversaries from even contemplating such an attack in the first place. Moreover, INS Arighat strengthens India's role as a net security provider in the Indian Ocean region. With increasing maritime challenges, including piracy, terrorism, and the protection of sea lines of communication, the presence of a sophisticated and capable fleet of nuclear submarines enhances India's ability to project power and protect its interests in the region. With Arihant and Arighat in service, India plans to build at least 2 more similar submarines before aiming for a giant ballistic missile submarine nearly twice the size of these 2. Bureau Report, India Today.
And joining me live to speak more about the arrival of INS Arighat, the significance and the effort it has taken to reach this momentous day when India now operates 2 made in India, designed in India, ballistic missile submarines, nuclear-propelled ballistic missile submarines, is Commodore Anil Jaisingh. He's a veteran submariner, Vice President of the Indian Maritime Foundation as well. Commodore Jaisingh, welcome. Thanks as always for your time on an important, sensitive and little understood topic. Nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarine, many say, is even more complicated, than a spacecraft. I don't know how far that is true, but what is clear is that it has taken a gargantuan effort, most of it completely behind closed doors, away from the public eye, for India to be able to induct not 1 8 years ago, but 2 today. The second such submarine of enormous complexity has joined service. How big a day, in your view, is this, coming from a veteran submariner, sir?
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to be on your program. As far as the induction of Arighat goes, I think it's a very significant day in the annals of Indian history and for India's maritime security capability, or not maritime security, national security capability. It lends a lot of teeth to our strategic posture. We had one SSBN since 2016-17, that was INS Arihant. And
Yes.
INS Arighat joining the naval fold has certainly greatly enhanced our strategic deterrence capability, because 2 is always better than 1, particularly when it's in cases of SSBNs, it's a tremendous exponential leap actually in capability. But I think what is very significant about Arighat's commissioning is that SSBN technology is something that nobody shares with anybody else. And so we've had to go about it on our own. So right from design to commissioning, this is an indigenous effort. And I think that speaks volumes for not only the capability of our industry, our Atomic Energy Commission, the Navy, and all the other agencies that have been involved with it, the Research and Development Organization, etc., private industry, which has contributed significantly to this program. All of them have been able to put their heads together and really deliver on a promise that that was long overdue. If India has to play in the big league, if India has to be a member of the global top table, it has to have these capabilities. Now, there is often said that, it's taken very long for this program to mature and fructify. But as I said, there are 2 factors. One, we had to go about it all on our own. So we had to develop the technological capability, the industrial infrastructure, the industrial expertise, and the operational and maintenance capability by the Navy to be able to operate and maintain this very, very complex and sophisticated platform. You're right. It's always SSBN is likened to a spaceship in complexity, and I don't think that's very inaccurate or off the mark, because the kind of environment an SSBN is to operate in, it has to have a miniaturized reactor. Reactors on land are hazardous enough and complicated enough. Here you're trying to miniaturize a reactor, put it inside a steel cylinder which has 60 or 70 men inside it, you cannot afford to go wrong.
Yes,
and that is why it
absolutely.
becomes very critical that even when a SSBN goes for a first trial to see, there has to be the confidence that every system will work the way it is meant to work. You
Yeah.
cannot, there's no hit and trial in a submarine that, okay, we'll go to sea and, if something doesn't work, doesn't matter, we'll come back and sort it out. Because
You
there
know,
may be certain things that may happen which may prevent
yeah.
the submarine from coming back at all. So I think from
Commodore
that
Jaisingh,
perspective, we must
yeah,
have learned a lot of lessons from Arihant. Arihant was our first ever attempt.
absolutely.
And this sort of gap between Arihant and Arighat of almost 7 to 8 years must have been spent in trying to iron out and learn the right lessons and ensure that whatever challenges were faced with Arihant have now been addressed. The whole construction progress will be more streamlined, because please do not forget, we are going in for larger and bigger SSBNs in the future. So we've got to be
Absolutely.
very sure of
The
our
question,
capability
I
before
want to
we
ask
venture
Commodore Jaisingh
that
is,
far.
in this 8-year gap between the earlier submarine we commissioned in 2016, the INS Arihant, and the Arighat, there are reported to have been many improvements, which there must have been. Like you said, many things would have been ironed out, capabilities would have gotten a boost. There are some reports that suggest a larger weapon carrying capacity, etc. Obviously, necessarily, all of these things will remain, under a shroud of secrecy. Nobody will know for sure what these capabilities are. But broadly speaking, what would the major improvements be from the first submarine to the Arighat now, sir?
Well, I think 2 or 3 things stand out right in the beginning. One is, of course, probably the weapon payload. I know that this submarine is also designed to carry the K-15, which is on the Arihant, which has a limited range of 750 kilometers. But we've also been hearing about the success with the underwater testing of the 3,500 kilometer K-4 missile.
Yeah.
So I'm sure Arighat will have a larger capability of being able to carry a more potent missile on board. So systems would have had to be adapted to that. The fire control system, interfacing with various other systems on board. The missile launch system by itself, that is one part of it. Secondly, I'm sure lessons learned from Arihant would have made this submarine quieter, more stealthy. Perhaps, certain areas where there were concerns with the equipment would have been ironed out. The complexity of the reactor is now better understood. We would have been able to refine that, perhaps better damping, more stealth, less vibration, better acoustics. There are many things that happen. Better sensors, perhaps,
Right.
a more advanced version of the sensors that are on the Arihant. There are many things that can be improved on the submarine, in a sequential manner. And I'm sure many of these would have been done. Many new technologies would have been adapted. Better command and control platform, perhaps. Better communication suite. Because
Yes.
in an SSBN, I think the most important element is the ability to communicate with the shore.
Yeah.
Imagine an SSBN out somewhere hundreds of miles out at sea, hundreds of meters below the water, having to deliver a ballistic nuclear weapon on fixed coordinates at a particular time, ordered by a command authority sitting ashore, perhaps in New Delhi. Now, that sort of robust ecosystem of communication and command and control needs a major sort of workup. It's not something that's going to happen naturally. There must have been issues with that. So all these things would have been ironed out. If you remember, in 2018, Arihant went for a first deterrent patrol.
Yeah.
That must have been first time the submarine was sent out to test its complete command and control ecosystem of the country,
Correct.
not so much of the submarine. Because delivering a weapon is one thing. Submarines are designed to fire weapons. The missile can be fired. But a ballistic nuclear missile is a whole different ballgame.
Correct.
And also, beyond a point, if the commanding officer has been ordered to launch a weapon, it's not something that can be stopped last minute and said, oh, don't launch, sorry, we're making a mistake, or sorry, we gave you the wrong coordinates. So it's a very complex structure that has to be put in place, a very complex architecture that has to be put in place to ensure that the submarine, for the purpose for which that SSBN is deployed, it is able to fulfill that objective successfully. Otherwise, the credibility of your entire nuclear weapon capability comes into question. So I think these are the things that they must have worked on a lot, addressed many of the issues that must have come up, and done extensive sea trials to ensure that once she's commissioned, she is fully combat capable and fully capable of going on a full-fledged deterrent patrol, armed and with all the command and control ecosystem in place.
Is there, the differences between a conventional submarine and a nuclear submarine, we've explained that to our viewers, Commodore Jai Singh, but, India and Indian sailors, Indian crews have had a few years, getting used to the very, very real differences in deployment in a nuclear submarine where you stay submerged, for much longer periods because that's what nuclear propulsion allows. How different is it? Is India now a true blue nuclear submarine wielding force?
Yes, I'm sure it is because, 2 SSBNs is quite an achievement. I mean, Don't forget, we are now the 6th nation in the world capable of building and operating our own SSBNs. So, and we've also proved that Arihant was no flash in the pan. It was a well thought out program which took its time to mature, obviously, because, India is not a rich country. We would have had financial constraints, we would have had resource constraints, we would have had technology constraints. Despite all that, we were able to put Arihant to sea, which was also, besides being an SSBN, a technology demonstrator of India's technological skills. But putting Arighat to sea means that we have consolidated that capability. We are now very sure of what we can do. And this augurs very well for the future SSBNs that we are planning to build, the bigger ones with more capability. So I think from that perspective, it's very important. As far as the habitability and the crew's sort of approach to nuclear submarine goes, we've trained our nuclear submarine crews considerably. We got the Chakra from Russia on lease for many years. We sailed that, so people learned the complexity of operating a platform like this at sea, the challenge of staying at sea for long durations, much longer than we do in SSKs. Of course, SSKs, being much smaller, the conventional diesel electric boats have their own challenges of space. The spaces are very confined. The SSBNs definitely have more space. The habitability is better. So all that is there, but nonetheless, spending 3 months underwater or 4 months underwater is a lot more than spending 30 to 40 days underwater. So I think the crews are well trained. The crews already were trained submariners, so it's not that they had to learn the ropes of submarining. They've just had to adapt their sort of submarining habits to now operating on a nuclear submarine. So I think from that point of view, we wouldn't have faced much of a challenge. We've spent a lot of time training our crews, training our commanding officers, executive officers, other officers, and the men. So as far as manning goes, I don't think it's operating SSBNs is going to be a challenge for us. Now, from a perspective of our capability, you said, are we truly a blue water submarine navy? Well, I wouldn't go so far as to say that because we still do not have an SSN capability. Now, an SSN capability is an integral part of any blue water navy because the SSN becomes your cutting edge frontline offensive weapon at sea, which is capable of being deployed anywhere at any time. It can do high speeds for any duration of time. It is very stealthy and it packs a major punch, even though it carries only conventional weapons. So I think till we don't get our SSNs, which is also a program that I understand is on the anvil, I think only once we have a complete SSN, SSBN and SSK capability would we really say that we're a true blue submarine operating navy.
Commodore Jai Singh, always a pleasure. Thank you for your inputs and your wisdom on this complicated story, helping us and our viewers understand what INS Arihant means, but also asking those important questions about what it's going to take to move to that next level. Thank you very much, Commodore Anil Jai Singh, for being here with us on Battle Cry.
Thank you.
Now, remember,
thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. INS Arihant is in service. It's a beautiful submarine, highly technologically advanced, but as a nuclear deterrent, the heart and the soul of the deterrence value of the submarine is, of course, in its nuclear weapons. India has a vast submarine-launched ballistic missile program that now will be at the very core of INS Arihant. Take a look.
The American Trident and the Russian Bulava. Two of the world's most destructive missiles. Both weapons of mass destruction. Last resort options. Launched from lurking nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarines or SSBNs. We've just given you a comprehensive overview of India's own SSBNs. And now we tell you about their current and future weapons. INS Arihant carries 4 of this missile you see here, the K4. The missile, a derivative of the Agni-3, is nuclear tipped and operational with India's nuclear deterrent. Sporting a range of over 3,500 kilometers, an extended range version called the K5, a derivative of the Agni-5, is also understood to be under development and could be tested soon. The second is the K15, officially designated B5, commonly referred to as Sagarika. The nuclear-capable K15 is also active on INS Arihant and sports a range of 750 kilometers. But the true deterrent, an intercontinental range ballistic missile for India's SSBN fleet, is taking early steps towards development testing. In 2017, the DRDO flagged off its K6 SLBM project, a missile with an ICBM-like range of 6,000 kilometers. This 3-stage solid fuel missile is said to be completely different from the K4 and K5. It will be ready in a few years from now. These new missiles, over 12 meters tall and over 2 meters in diameter, will carry a 3-ton warhead. The K6 will ensure that the future Indian SSBN's bastion area will be within the Bay of Bengal, from where it can target all its potential adversaries. So while India's nuclear submarine deterrent is being developed at full speed, its nuclear teeth are in top gear as well. As always, the true strength of such weapons is in India never having to need them. Because should such a situation come to pass, it would mean that the world is already in an apocalyptic war.
Nuclear submarines, as we've demonstrated here, including INS Arighat, are vastly complicated machines, but they're also vital to a country like India's national security. Think of conventional attack submarines and nuclear-powered attack submarines as fighter aircraft, but nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarines are basically bombers. They're the last resort when the nuclear balloon, actually goes up. But why are nuclear submarines so important for India? Take a look.
Nuclear submarines sound dangerous and fancy. But in an unpredictable world, they play a terrifyingly specific role. Diving the depths of ocean, modern-day nuclear submarines are virtually impossible to detect. Hiding deep, the strategic variety carry long-range nuclear missiles, giving a nation the devastating last word in an unthinkable nuclear conflict. These submarines are the most critical part of the nuclear triad, the most sophisticated and deadly military hardware ever built. A little history first. In 1954, the commissioning of world's first nuclear submarine, USS Nautilus, opened a new paradigm. Now powered with a very small quantity of nuclear fuel, these subs could operate completely submerged at high speed indefinitely and thereby change the rules of the game forever. armed with long-range submarine-launched ballistic missiles, these black giants are the ultimate deterrent. But it's not just the deadly, accurate weapons in its arsenal or its stealthiness. What makes them the most vital cog in the security matrix is its ability to hit back, and hit back hard when all other options are not available. Nuclear submarines complete the nuclear triad. As the name suggests, it consists of three-pronged nuclear capability. These components are land-based intercontinental ballistic missiles, strategic aircraft armed with nuclear bombs and missiles, and last but not the least, submarine-launched ballistic missiles. In a worst-case scenario, military planners have ranked the nuclear submarine the most secure leg of the nuclear triad, which ensures the capability of a second strike, ensuring a nation's nuclear deterrence.
Stand by. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire! Fire! Torpedo fired!
A submarine is a perfect weapon, carrying weapons of mass destruction in its belly and capable of giving the knockout punch to the enemy without ever being detected, in an unthinkable situation of a world in a nuclear war. But again, nations are wary of the fact that, like the mythical Brahmastra, nuclear weapons, the most destructive weapons which cause unspeakable human suffering, should never be used and should remain only as a deterrent.
And remember, the beautiful irony of a system like the INS Arihant is that it is only powerful if it never ever needs to be used. Thanks for watching. The news continues on the other side.